On your Monday episode of Locked On Raptors, it may be empty calories, but we did get the best bite of BBQ we've had all season this weekend. Yes, it's a food podcast now.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday, March the 17th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms, and you can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can also find the show on Instagram, and you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Free as always. Come be part of our listener community. Link in the description of the podcast. You can also subscribe for free to the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter. QR code on the screen. Link in the description of the podcast if you're listening on audio, and it's much appreciated when you do that. 5 days a week, you get emails from me writing about your local basketball team. You get Katie Heindel, League at Large pieces, Josh Lloyd, fantasy tips, the whole 9 yards, and it's all for the low, low price of $0. So please go do it. It's much appreciated. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And with that, we're off and running, talking about a pair of Toronto Raptors games from over the weekend, a split against the Jazz and the Blazers, 126-118. The Raptors were the winners on Friday against the pathetic Utah Jazz. And then Sunday against a slightly less pathetic Portland Trailblazers team, they pulled a clutch loss, 105-102, after kind of coasting and looking like the better team for long stretches of that game, despite not playing most of their guys for long stretches of that game. We'll get into that and what that game meant for the tank standings. We'll also get into the good, the bad, and the from the weekend that was. But I do want to start off the top by talking about what I think was the best game we've seen in terms of like on-court process between Immanuel Quickley, Scottie Barnes, and RJ Barrett. The BBQ trio, which I listed in the incorrect order. QBB. No, it's BBQ. That's what we're at. Barnes-Barrett-Quickley. I do think this was, again, the gigantic caveat that March basketball means so little. It's ridiculous to pull anything from it. I'm not being seduced by the Raptors winning a bunch of games here against non-opponents while playing non-rosters. Like, it's like, obviously what's going on in March is very fake in most cases. But I do think in terms of like process, in terms of carrying over things that we did see that were working in January and February, which I think are the kind of best encapsulation of what this team is that we've gotten all season long, really. When they kind of got healthy, they actually had their point guard available for long stretches of those 2 months. Like, those to me are what you're looking at as far as the true encapsulation, the true sort of picture of where this team is at in time. And I do think Quickley, Barnes, and Barrett showed some stuff during that stretch that makes me think it's not so crazy that the process that they showed in a game like on Friday against the Jazz is like unsustainable or can't be carried over. And I do think in particular, it's Immanuel Quickley that kind of makes this whole vision come together. Like, he looks really good right now. And I do think what Quickley does make everything just like a little bit easier for everybody else. It makes the whole vision of the team a lot more certain and clear. And I think it really helps weaponize a guy like Scottie Barnes in some ways that maybe he wasn't able to be weaponized in the first half of the year when he was creating every possession from above the arc with zero head of steam getting downhill. And it was awful. It was terrible. It was no good to watch. And I think Quickley, we're just seeing him stir this drink a little bit in a way that they've badly needed to stir all year long before he was available. And now look, we're into a pretty sustained stretch of him playing basketball. He's played 17 of his 26 games this season. So about 2/3 of his games have come since January the 31st, when he kind of got back full-time in earnest there. He's essentially played 2/3 of his games since January the 31st. It's the biggest bulk set of games we have to judge Quickley on. And I think they're probably the most telling as well, because the games prior to that, it was fits and starts. It was he plays a half and then gets injured. He plays a game and then another game and then gets injured again, comes back, leaves early. Like, it just like, you were never getting anything real from that first section of games from Quickley. But over the last 17, I'll go back to the numbers, the per 36 numbers I keep on citing. They keep on going up is the thing. 23 points, 5 boards, 6 assists for 36 minutes. Obviously, he's dealt with minutes restrictions and stuff like that since coming back. Nearly 62% true shooting, up to 48% on his twos on the season. That's a big deal. Way better than that since January 31st as well. And he's just, yes, he's doing it right now against the goop that is March basketball and the opponents that the Raptors are coming across, who are all terrible. But I do think prior to this, he was also showing really encouraging signs. He has been the Raptors' best player since January the 31st. He has been their best offensive player. He is guiding the offense. He's taking over games for these little stretches. This is the thing I'm loving with Quickley is like he'll have these little pockets of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 possessions where he just decides, okay, like I'm impacting every single possession, whether it is a pull-up three, whether it's relocating for an off-ball three, whether it's a drive for a floater, whether it's creating for someone in pick and roll. He's just got the finger on the pulse of these games and is in control for large swaths of possessions. And it's guiding the Raptors to wins. Like they completely waxed the Jazz essentially in that game on Friday. It never felt close. The Jazz kind of made it close by the end, but when the Raptors' good players were on the floor, they had no shot. Plus 14 for Quickley in that game. 20 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, 6 of 13. Just 2 of 8 from downtown, 6 of 6 from the line, 4 of 5 from 2. Like there's just a lot of good stuff happening with Quickley right now, even though what we're seeing over the last couple of weeks is up against a schedule that cannot really bring you any kind of grand conclusions, right? Like that's just the reality. But again, this was happening before March basketball took over. And I think we saw a couple of examples in that game against the Jazz of just how quickly, and to a lesser extent, but still there, RJ Barrett can make life easier for Scottie Barnes, especially once you factor in the added creation and gravity that Brandon Ingram is going to have on the floor once he gets back and plays. And I think a couple of these possessions, I think they took place in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Forgive me, I'm watching these games in a haze. It's just like eyes glazed over. Oh my God, this is terrible basketball. There's a few little flourishes here and there that'll grab my attention. And this stuff with Quickley in particular and Barrett and the way Barnes kind of worked off of them really stood out to me as like stuff. If you could bottle that, that's the stuff that's going to make Scottie Barnes a way more efficient player in a new context with this team next year. There was one possession where Immanuel Quickley has the ball up high. He's being guarded pretty close by whoever is guarding him. I don't know, some bad Utah Jazz player. And he just completely dusts his guy. He turns the corner, gets behind him, gets downhill. And as he's getting downhill, he draws help from Scottie Barnes' man as Scottie's standing at the 45 on the left wing. Quickley's driving in from the right side. The help comes over at the nail to ward off the drive from Quickley. And instantly, as soon as that help comes, he just fires a quick, easy pass over to Scottie Barnes. And Scottie Barnes is sitting there with the seas parted, and he goes down it and dunks. Beautiful. What have we talked about a lot with Scottie Barnes on this show? Why have I been so keen on him being someone who takes catch and shoot threes, even though they're not falling right now? It's because Scottie Barnes attacking a closeout is one of the most dangerous things in basketball. He's great getting downhill. Once he gets ahead of steam, he's hard to stop. He's very strong. He can pass out of those situations if the help slides over. He's really effective attacking a closeout, getting into the teeth of the defense away from the ball once the ball swings to him. And yeah, in theory, if you have a guy who teams are very happy to help off of, that's a bad thing, right? This is why some guys just don't hang because they can't shoot threes, and just the way defenses guard them, they're so offering so little utility on the floor. But Scottie Barnes is a little different. Scottie Barnes, when he attacks a closeout, when a team is giving him space and just kind of sagging off of him, he can chew up that space and weaponize it and turn it into something. This is the thing that made Pascal Siakam so effective, and why I never really bought the idea that, no one cares about him shooting threes, so he's bad, which was like a dumb person thing to say about Pascal Siakam. But Siakam was a master of chewing up the space that teams would give him when he'd get the ball on the catch and weaponizing it, right? Hey, okay, you're going to give me a few feet to get ahead of steam. Great. I'm going to get into that head of steam. I'm going to get up to full tilt. I'm going to spin move you into oblivion. I'm going to score in your head. Scottie Barnes has a similar ability to weaponize that space that other guys have created for him, right? Whether it's bringing off the help, whether it's, just kind of attacking a closeout, whatever it might be. Even if guys are not going to fully close out to him because they're not worried about him shooting threes, he can find a way to take that little chunk of space, those few feet that defenses are giving him, and turn it into something. And I think we saw in that game against the Jazz exactly that encapsulation of how Scottie can be effective away from the ball as a result of the gravity and the help that a guy like Quickley has and is garnering when he's driving. And Quickley's been really good at beating his man, getting into the teeth of the defense, drawing help, passing out of that. It's been really impressive. And I think that possession in particular stood out. We also saw with RJ Barrett, right? A couple instances where actually there was like that that Quickley to Scottie dunk, like a couple possessions later, similar thing. RJ Barrett attacking on the right side of the floor. And obviously teams are worried about his drives. They're worried about his left hand. So help comes to ward off the drive. And all of a sudden, RJ's hitting Scottie on the move at the 45, cutting in for another dunk. Like those are like Scottie's such a good play finisher. He's such a good guy in sort of, just kind of maximizing space in terms of, I think he's a very good cutter. They could probably weaponize that more. It's just not something he's been asked to do a ton, but I think he will be asked to do more within this new team context with Quickley playing like this, with Ingram on the team. There's a way in which Scottie Barnes like revolutionizes his efficiency because Immanuel Quickley in particular and Brandon Ingram are able to put him in spots where it's really hard to stop him, like driving against a parted defense that's been compromised because Immanuel Quickley keeps on burning his dude and getting downhill into the teeth of the defense. Very simple basketball. Like it's a simple sport at its core. And I think Scottie Barnes, there's a lot of things that can really weaponize all that stuff. And just kind of going back to the whole Quickley thing. I mean, Quickley, again, he's the guy who makes this vision make sense, especially once you have Ingram on the team to carry some of that offensive burden. Because I don't think it's fair to ask Quickley to do it all right now. And obviously Barnes has been overextended. Barrett can do it here and there, but I still think Barrett's at his best as a low touch time off ball play finisher type. But when it comes to Quickley in terms of how he's fitting here too, I mean, defensively, as impressive as the offense has been, the defense has not really been it's not been a problem by any means. I think he's been a slightly above average defender since getting fully healthy. I think the on-court metrics paint it very promisingly with him. He's third on the team among regulars in on-court defensive differential. The team is 3.5 points per 100 possessions better when he's on the floor. That's behind only Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl, who are at 4.5 and 5.5 points respectively. It's huge. A lot of the other guys on the team are negatives. RJ Barrett's a negative. Immanuel Quickley, the team's better on defense when he's on the floor. That's a big deal. And again, what he's doing on offense right now, shooting 48% on his twos, up to 62% true shooting over this last stretch, all very encouraging stuff. And again, as much as March basketball means nothing, it's terrible. It's an absolute garbage context to evaluate anything in. And plenty of people get really duped by teams going on heaters in March and thinking, oh, this will carry over to next year when it just doesn't. I don't think that's what's going on here. This just feels like a bit of an extension of stuff we were already seeing from Quickley. He's just doing it against really bad teams that have no hope in hell of stopping it, as opposed to teams that have some hope in hell of stopping it. Either way, we're going to come back on the other side, put a pin in that for now, and get to the thing all you freaks wanted me to talk about, which is the tank, which is the clutch loss to the Blazers after it looked like they were going to win on the back of Jakob Poeltl banging threes and throwing down transition dunks. They lose, and that's a good thing if the tank is the thing you care about. We'll get into why that is coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by friends at DoorDash, and right now, NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score huge the next day on a wonderful deal. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get $50 off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So maybe you're out with friends watching the game at a bar and a guy in that game scores 50 points and you go, whoa, I got to get myself a deal the next day. I'm going to be pretty hungover. I don't want to cook. You get yourself a hangover cure with that Dash Pass order and that deal with the 50 points deal. That's great. That's fantastic. You can get yourself a burger or a chicken sandwich, whatever it might be. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. And please tip your drivers. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And right now, March Madness is upon us. It's here. The men's and women's tournaments begin this week. Very exciting. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in extra bonus bucks to go and use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories to even who's cutting down the nets. maybe you're like me. You just go into March Madness with a vague understanding of like a handful of the players, not so much the teams, and you want to maybe hitch your wagon to a team with like a cool looking mascot or a fun jersey design or whatever it might be. Throw some money on that team to win. Just $5. If you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. That's super fun. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long with FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Back at it here on your Monday edition of Locked On Raptors, talking about the tank and where things sit. It was looking kind of dire after the win against the Jazz on Friday and deep into the game against the Blazers where the Raptors looked they were going to win again. And again, dire if this is the thing you really have invested yourself in. I am of the mind at this point, whatever. It's out of my control. I'm not going to get mad at the team for not like going 100% full Jazz and sitting everybody every game, even though they're healthy. I'm not going to get upset if the Raptors dodge fines for player participation rule violations, right? Like, it sucks. This is a dumb position for any fan base to be in. It's a dumb position for any team to be in. Really, this is just the dumb incentive structure the NBA has created. And again, I'm not going to go and be all upset if the team doesn't sell out to lose every single game like the Jazz are. I can't get there. As much as it might be objectively the right thing to do, it's anti-competitive, it's anti-entertainment, it stinks, and I'm a principled man. I can be principled when I'm not a stakeholder in the front office of this team. I'm fine if they're just going to keep doing what they've done, which, hey, kind of worked perfectly in the game against the Blazers. Their tank formula was executed to perfection against the Blazers, where they play some, not all of their guys for, 25-ish minutes. They get some run in, they get the cardio going, whatever. And they let their 10-day guys and two-way guys and Orlando Robinsons run wild, play a ton of minutes, and eventually snatch defeat from the jaws of victory late. Like, that's the script. I'm perfectly fine if every single game this year follows. It's fine. It's a perfect in-between, right down the middle balance of again, the tank equilibrium that I've talked about a little bit. It's a fine way to approach it for me. That will result in them losing games. Problem is, like, the Blazers are one of the best teams they had left on their truly hilarious schedule. And so it's not going to work against every team. There's no doubt. The Wizards are playing a little better lately. Maybe you pick up a couple losses to the Wizards. That would be nice, I guess. Beyond that, you play the Warriors. They're killing it. They'll probably smack you. They probably lose to the Suns tonight, even though the Suns are pathetic. But it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know what else they're really supposed to do here. The standings are what they are. The Sixers and Nets, they both lost yesterday or won yesterday. That's nice, I guess. But like, those teams are now ahead of the Raptors. They have 23 losses. The Raptors have 24. The Raptors are 7th right now in the overall standings for the lottery. Like, 7th feels like as low as they're going to fall. That said, the end of the schedule is a joke, and they could totally happen into some wins here that they, don't really want. And there are some teams that are kind of lurking there, right? The Bulls still are the Bulls. They had a 4-game win streak. They lost again over the weekend, though, and they're 4 games up in terms of wins, plus the tiebreaker on the Raptors. That in theory, that's the lowest you fall, but like, the Spurs are coming. The Blazers had lost 6 in a row, I think, before the Raptors played them. The Heat are awful right now. They've lost 7 in a row. They're the same record basically as the Blazers. Like, same number of wins. These teams are all in the wheelhouse of the Raptors potentially catching them if they really start to win all these games down the stretch. And again, like, they're trying to lose these games. They played nobody against the Sixers last week. They played Scottie Barnes for like 25 minutes on Friday. Didn't play RJ Barrett. They played RJ Barrett on Friday. They didn't play Jakob Poeltl on Friday. I don't know. I'm losing track of who's not even playing in all these games because they're like resting guys very, very liberally in all these games. Yeah, there was no Jakob Poeltl on Friday. So they played 34 minutes of Orlando Robinson. I'm sorry, if you can't lose playing 34 minutes of Orlando Robinson, maybe you just weren't meant to lose. I'm just at the point now where, yeah, it's ideal if they finish 5th in the lottery odds. Great. It'd be awesome. I just don't think it's all that realistic considering the schedule they've been saddled with down the stretch. And I'm not sitting here like saying, oh, if they go win all these games, this means something for next year. Again, March means nothing. Nothing happening right now means anything in terms of the grand picture here. But I also have a hard time being upset with the approach they're taking I know there are some out there. I know Eric Kareen wrote about it today, how there's no honor among thieves. And, what are you doing being sort of halfway ethical with this when other teams are fully going unethical and sitting everybody shamelessly? I get it. I understand the Raptors. There is an avenue here where they just sit everybody. No Barnes, no Pirtle, no Quickley, no Barrett. Everyone sits down. I mean, it's been hard to get to that of late because they've had actual real injuries on the team that have limited the availability of guys. No Jacoby Walter, no Jonathan Mobo. Ochai Abaji got back. That's maybe helpful in this regard. He had a nice game on Sunday. Nice to see him back in the lineup. Grady Dick is out. Like, they're dealing with a pretty compressed roster as is. If you bench all the guys who are ostensibly healthy, like, you're leaving your guys, like with 6, 7, 8 guys to actually play games. That's tough. That's like, again, fully shameless, fully lame. And again, I'm not going to get too upset if the Raptors say, hey, like, our hands are a little bit tied here. We could do all of this. We could sit all of these guys, and our young guys, our two ways, our AJ Lawsons of the world, our Jamal Sheds of the world are simply playing too well to lose enough of these games anyway. What are you going to do? It is a gigantic, what are you going to do right now for me with the Raptors? And again, we won't know if they will actually win some of these games until they try it and sit all these guys and just play the two ways and 10 days and rookies. Like, that is an avenue to them to just go and test and see, but I don't think it guarantees them anything. And at this point, it is just like you're probably going to be 7th in the odds. There is a worst case scenario where they're like 11th. We'll get into that in a sec here. There's a best case where they're 5th, 7th is fine, 8th is fine if they happen into the plane and pass the Bulls. Like, that's not even the end of the world. I don't know, man. It's tough. This is not a position any fan base should be in. This is terrible. And right now, the Raptors are frankly just too good right now. Even when they play just 2 or 3 of their main guys and a bunch of other dudes who are probably not going to be on the team next year, they're too good. And again, they're limited by the availability of other guys to help fill out a full roster. So they can't really sit everybody every single game right now. And I don't really know what else they're supposed to do here other than sit everybody down and play 8 guys, none of whom will be in the NBA beyond next season. Like, I don't know, man. It's not fun. There's a question the Raptors are going to have to face here at some point here. Like, if they just keep on, again, you probably lose to the Suns tonight. You maybe lose to the Warriors Wednesday, pick up a couple more losses, but then you start getting into your real grime of the schedule where, again, it's more Sixers, more Wizards, more Hornets, a lot of really bad teams still left to play. They might get to a point where they have to ask the question of themselves, is it worth just playing the guys, bringing Ingram in, and pushing for the play-in? Because that's really just kind of the only option. I don't think they're there yet, and I do think you have to watch out for the Heat, the Spurs, and the Blazers, because if this were a thing where the Bulls were the 8th team in the odds and in that play-in spot, and they were kind of clear in the standings of any other team, if they were at like 29 or 28 wins and the Blazers at 34 and the Spurs had 33, maybe it's different. But with those teams all so close right now, pushing for the play-in at one point felt like 8th was going to be the lowest you'd be anyway if you lose the play-in games and you don't advance to the actual playoffs. 8th would be your floor even if you made the play-in. You can live with that. That's fine. But if you make 8th and the Blazers and the Spurs and the Heat and, I don't know, the Mavericks, some of these other teams that are kind of a little bit ahead in the standings there go full tank down the stretch, do you accidentally find yourself with the 11th odds and not making the playoffs because you lose in the play-in? And is that the worst case scenario? It's certainly there. And so, yeah, I don't think the Raptors are at a point yet where I'm pulling an about face and ditching the tank entirely until that absolute worst case scenario is out of view. And it may never be out of view because the Bulls and the Blazers and the Spurs are all going to be in lockstep probably down the stretch. If anything, the Bulls probably finish with more wins than those teams at this point. It's tough, man. I don't like having to come on here every day and have thoughts about intentionally losing basketball games. It kind of runs against everything that I like about sports, but we're here and that's where we're at. Big clutch loss for the Raptors on Sunday. Well done. Way to get your guys out. They still almost pull it out with Jamison Battle nearly tying it at the buzzer. But what are you going to do? It's the schedule is what the schedule is, man. And I just, what can you really do? We'll come back on the other side. We're going to get into the good, the bad, and the from the weekend that was. And more importantly, ways to not watch the terrible March basketball. Alternatives for you. Obviously, keep watching the games and, maybe the all possessions recaps on League Pass and keep rocking with the show. But there are other things out there to watch. We'll get into that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Look, it's a very user-friendly. You can go and juggle multiple apps. You can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, even plan your long-term goals. Where you might have to go to 3 or 4 different websites before, you just go to Monarch. They're going to help you just kind of get it all under one umbrella to make it super simple. I'm not someone who's good at admin whatsoever. This includes my finances, and Monarch Money, a huge way to help take the burden of admin off my plate. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Wrapping things up here on your Monday edition of Locked On Raptors with the good, the bad, and the as we come out of a 1-1 weekend of Toronto Raptors basketball. Again, this is a thing I like, thing I didn't like. It's got me a little bit intrigued about the latest in Toronto Raptors basketball. But we wrap up every single episode of this here podcast on the heels of a game played by your local tanking basketball team. The good, watching other teams. Look, man, I got to do it because it's my job, and you got to do it because you're sickos. But don't just cordon yourself off into this silo of watching the Toronto Raptors right now, because it's an exhausting experience. I can't lie to you. This is better than last year down the stretch, because the guys on last year's team down the stretch were certainly not going to be in the NBA anymore beyond that season. This year, there's a little bit more to build on. This does feel kind of like an annoying, not very good opening band before the actual act kicks in next year. You can get through it, you can survive, but you should always still keep an eye on the other teams that can kind of bring you basketball joy, because it's hard to find right now. Other teams that are cool that I think you should watch: the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is unbelievable. He's so good. He rules. Go check him out. The Indiana Pacers, our dear pal Pascal Siakam, playing incredible basketball. The Pacers, super fun. High pace, high octane. They're cool. Look, I kind of like watching the Lakers right now, purely as a curiosity. Luka Doncic plays for the Lakers? What? This is crazy. They're actually not so bad either. The Golden State Warriors, winning a lot of games. Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, pretty cool. That's fun to watch. Not the Orlando Magic. Don't watch them. That's worse than watching the Raptors. I know they beat to the Cavs earlier this week, but who cares? Don't care. Either way, watch other teams. That's the good thing. I'm finding joy in, yes, I'm watching Toronto Raptors basketball, of course, as you should be as well. I'm not here trying to send the audience away. Please still listen to the podcast. I need to eat food. But enrich yourself by watching other basketball teams that are playing real competitive basketball, which, to be fair, is only 18 teams in the league right now, but it's still a thing you can go and find if you seek it out. The bad, March basketball. It's a joke. What are we doing here? How is the NBA okay with more than a third of the fan bases in the league actively rooting for their teams to lose while they play guys who are not really NBA players? I don't understand. This is miserable. The last couple of weeks have felt like 3 months watching this team. And the messed up thing is that it's being repeated over so many fan bases around the league. And I don't understand how the league is okay with this. You've got a team in the Raptors right now getting chastised for not trying hard enough to lose games, despite actively wetting their own pants on purpose in a lot of these games. They're not trying hard enough. They're bad at this. They're a loser franchise for winning too many games. How is this a thing? It's crazy. Like, it's just, I don't understand how the league is all right with this being how their schedule ends. It's baffling to me. It's embarrassing. It totally is just like a big middle finger to the fans. Shout out, we had a couple of listeners in the Locked On Raptors Discord yesterday who were in Portland for their one time. They're living on the West Coast. Their one time to see the Raptors in person this year. Got to see them in Portland. And look, I'm sure they were very excited. Shout out to our pals Sean and Psychic in the Locked On Raptors Discord who got to those games. Sent photos. Very cool. But like, these lovely Locked On Raptors listeners spent their hard-earned money to go watch Colin Castleton play Crunch Time. Really? Like, this is what you think of your fans, to have this structure, this incentive structure? On tomorrow's show, Big V, Vivek, Jacob, and I are going to pitch around some fixes to tanking because we've been complaining about it a lot. It's time we came with some hard solutions. It's not hard to find solutions if you just like think for 2 seconds. There are ways to curb this awful March basketball nonsense where the last part of the schedule means nothing. And we'll get into that tomorrow. But I feel for anyone who's buying tickets to go to basketball games right now. I said it earlier, like, you're looking around the schedule right now. You're lucky if you get like 2 or 3 good games between two teams that are actually trying. It's really hard to find, though. You get so many of these games where it's either 2 tank-off teams in this embarrassing attempt to lose. You have a tanking team versus a good team, and it's just like, okay, well, they're just going to get waxed. Great, cool. The Hornets lose by 50 to the Cavs or whoever they play. The Jazz, I think, lost to the Wolves by 30 yesterday. Like, this isn't normal. This isn't basketball. This is not good. I don't understand how the league's all right with it, and they're okay with a lot. Like, there are some things they are okay with that is just like, or they're not okay with it. They try to fix that. Like, who cares? Like, why are you trying to fix this? The All-Star game for one, like, who cares? Like, this is a way more existential threat to the health of your league, man. You're just telling a whole bunch of your audience, yeah, you can talk to us in April. Don't worry about the last 6 weeks of the season, last 8 weeks of the season. Doesn't actually matter. It's pathetic, and it's bad, and I hate it. For me, are we going to see Brandon Ingram? We got some social posts from the Raptors last week with some cryptic messages. Soon, everyone's favorite online word to mean maybe a guy's coming back soon, maybe not. The team is obviously not overtly interested in shutting everybody down, so maybe there's a window here for Brandon Ingram to play. It seems like he's ramping back up. I think maybe you do it. Like, I don't know. If you do it, maybe you just do it right and say, hey, this is our declaration. Screw it. We're pushing for the play-in. And I got to say, after watching these, again, interminable last couple weeks of basketball, I feel like if we got to see Brandon Ingram play with the full slate of guys for this team, actually go out there and just like take it to these terrible teams and run them off the floor by 40 every night, I feel like I would be a castaway on an island finding fresh water, just thrilled, just overcome with joy and glee to be drinking down the delicious good stuff. Like, that to me is how I think I would feel if we were to see Brandon Ingram come back. I'm 50-50 on whether we'll actually see it still. We're running out of time here. I think we're getting pretty close to another update from the team. Likely get one this week, I think, if my math checks out. I don't know, man. We're running out of runway for sure. If it's still like, oh, we'll be back in 2 weeks, like, okay, then you're into April, and what are you really doing here? It's strange timeline, strange runway, all of that. But I would not hate seeing Brandon Ingram play basketball at this point, because like, we got a month more of this crap, man. A month more. Do you have the stomach for it? Really? I don't know. Maybe some people are fine just like living in garbage for a long stretch with the promise of something better down the line. The thing is, like, they don't need. Yes, it's better if they have a high pick. Obviously, having a high pick is good. They don't need it for next year to be successful, I guess is what I'm saying. And the team, as it's constructed, with Quickley playing the way he is, with Ingram in the mix, with Scottie in a better context offensively, with the defense coming around the way it has, it's still one of the better defenses in the NBA over the last couple months here. Like, they don't need a super high pick for next year to be successful. They need one if they want to blow the ceiling off the thing and just kind of get a young, super talented guy in. The odds of getting a Cooper Flag or Dylan Harper are super slim anyway. So I am at the point now where maybe I just say screw it and throw Ingram in. I don't know, man. It's I'm losing my mind over here. Welcome to Locked On Raptors, a daily look at a man going insane over the last stretch of this season. It will get better. It will get more exciting. There will be draft stuff to talk about. Once the season is over, it's going to be really exciting to look ahead at all the machinations of how this team is going to look in the future, what it's going to look like with Ingram. But right now, man, we are in the middle of the quagmire. We are up to our knees in muck. It's terrible, and I really hope it ends soon. And maybe Brandon Ingram is the way to make it all feel a little bit better. Anyway, this has been me going insane for 30 minutes, watching horrible basketball. Look, for those who are new to the podcast, I'm so much better at talking about a good team than a bad team. It's unbelievable. Love talking about a good team. Get the tactics, get the X's and O's, have some fun. It's awesome. As an optimism guy, as a toxic positivity pilled guy, I do well when the team is doing well. When they're bad, it makes me go a little crazy. Either way, we'll be back in tomorrow. Big V's going to be on. We're talking about tanking. We'll talk about the game against the Suns too. I'm sure there will be not a whole lot useful that comes out of it because welcome to the NBA in March 2025. But until then, thank you so much for rocking with the show. Please don't stop listening to the show. I hope it's still entertaining and fun. But I know it's easy to check out. I've talked to Raptors fans who have just said, I've checked out. I'm not watching games right now. Keep listening to the podcast, though. I'll keep you in the loop. Help you, you can know what's going on and all that good stuff. Give you your Immanuel Quickley propaganda, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, we're in dire need of something interesting going on. So yeah, bring back Ingram. Either way, we'll talk about tanking tomorrow. We're going to talk about some college basketball guys this week, as well as the March Madness tournament kicks up and lots of prospects are involved. So fun week ahead, no matter what the actual basketball on the court for your Toronto Raptors is looking like. And that is how we get through. Either way, thanks so much for tuning in to this exercise in a man losing his mind. We'll talk to you Tuesday. Bye-bye. Bucket. Woo!